Okay, so round number two. We actually started this call already, but we both had technical issues. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Harvey. Nice to see you, Harvey. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to be here. Nice to meet you as well, face to face.
So, I said this in our first recording, but Harvey's actually been my accountant for quite some time now, and this is the first time we're seeing each other over a camera. So, good intro there. So, Harvey, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Harvey. I'm the owner and CEO of Zmartly Accountants, which has been running since 2018. A large base of our clients are e-commerce, which is great for the community that you serve as well. My background, if you want me to go all the way back, was I graduated from university studying economics, and I went straight into the banking sector, which at that point I thought that was the pinnacle of where I wanted to be, like Wolf of Wall Street. That was kind of what my aspiration was. So I spent 8 years in investment banking and wealth management in various different roles. Um, was kind of just doing everything you were meant to do. You were meant to study hard, get a good education, go into the corporate world, climb the ladder. And what I found was it wasn't really satisfying me. I was doing all the right things, ticking all the right boxes, getting all the right pay rises, but I wasn't really getting fulfilled. And it was a strange one, really, because when I was speaking to my family members and I was telling them, look, I'm not really enjoying it. There's something missing in me. And they were just telling me, you're stupid. You're so privileged to be in the position that where you are. People will kill to be in that position. And you're telling me you're not happy in a way. Like, just get on with it. And I guess it's a generational difference, right? Like, I'm in the millennial generation, and Gen Z are even more better at breaking down those barriers. Uh, but that was me starting to think there's got to be more to this in life than just waking up in the morning, going on the tube for an hour and a half in London, going to work for about 10 hours in the day, then an hour and a half on the way back. Yeah, you get a good wage, but you're just constantly tired and don't really enjoy life in essence. Because even on Saturdays, you'd wake up, you sleep in, and half your Saturday's gone. And then Sunday at 6 p.m., you already start thinking about work on Monday. I was just thinking there's got to be more to this than that.
So, you were in a position of privilege financially. Those are the words you just used, but your friends and family members didn't quite understand that because you weren't feeling that fulfillment, it just wasn't what you wanted to continue doing.
Yeah, so I thought I need something more fitting, and it was the era of the internet. So in about 2017, I started to look what else is there out there. And I heard of my first venture, which was eBay dropshipping, where I would literally buy products from Amazon, sell them on eBay. And I thought, this is genius. And at first I was actually skeptical. I thought, why would someone from eBay buy something that's cheaper on Amazon? It didn't make sense. But when I did it, you realize there's plenty of people who can't be bothered to surf the internet, compare prices. They would just go ahead and purchase it, assuming that's the cheapest price available. So I started that venture in 2017, and that was the first time actually I started to make not a lot of money outside, but a little bit of money outside of the side of work. And it just gave me that fulfillment. While I was at work, I was thinking about the business on the side, thinking, I got like 17 orders today, got 18 orders a day, not even caring about the profit, but something was starting to come into my mind that there is a world out there outside of these four walls of work, where you can make money online, on the internet or outside of work while even double jobbing in essence, doing a side hustle. So that started to give me some fulfillment, some joy in the day that, I do my job, but look, I had £200 turnover in the day. I had £500 turnover in the day. So I started to get a little bit fulfilled on that. And that's when I started to venture on, starting to build a life outside of work. That was the first part of the journey, really.
So I'm a big fan of watching business related podcasts. And one thing I always find really interesting is how many people you see who are usually American. They're working these corporate jobs, earning more money than you could imagine earning, but they're absolutely miserable because they hate what they do. And to me, it just goes to show there's no amount of money. Well, there maybe is an amount of money, but to me, there's no amount of money to spend my life doing something I hate because you've only got one chance to live, right?
And that's it. And the thing is, you can earn really good money, but if you're spending your Monday to Friday purely dedicated at work, and this is before work from home was such a thing, and it's becoming less of a thing now in a lot of the corporate places. A lot of places wanting to go back 5 days a week, or at least 3 days a week. But if you're spending all that time at work, you don't have time to spend your money anyway, apart from 2 weeks, 2 weeks a year on your annual leave. So yeah, it leads to you being a bit miserable, not really content, and the money is not really satisfying you. It's not enough of a factor alone to keep you in that place.
Would you say there was a sort of breaking point that made you make the shift, or was it just discovering those sales on eBay, giving you that sales hit that got you going?
The shift of doing something outside of work or leaving work. I've done both.
Yeah, shifting from working for someone else to working for yourself.
Sure. So I'll have to go a bit further back. So once I started eBay, then I started to think, what else can I do? How can I leave work? I didn't see eBay as a sustainable business model that I could leave my job in, cover the same salary. So I thought of the idea of creating an accountancy company, building my own brand, my own organization properly, where I have like a marketing team, operations team, sales team, accounting team, bookkeepers, etc. Like a proper big organization was always my vision that I had even from an early stage. So I started to build that towards 2018. And I spent 2 years building that on the side of work every evening, every weekend, live, breathe, and had that vision board on my wall basically of where I wanted to take my own practice. In 2020 was when, funnily enough, about a week before COVID hit, was when I decided to leave work and go into full-time own business. I've heard a lot of stories about what made people shift, and a lot of them tend to be about once my side income was more than my full-time income, I decided to leave, or when it was double my full-time income or half my full-time income. Actually, I didn't have much income when I decided to leave. My turning point was, I'm not enjoying work. I'm really excited and enjoying the stuff I'm doing on the side, but I don't have enough hours to give to the thing I like doing because I spend 60 hours at work in a week. So the acceleration of my own business was too slow. It wasn't fast enough. I couldn't make it grow fast enough because I only dedicated limited hours in the week. There was only limited hours in the week to work on it. So I decided, for me to really push this, to do what I enjoy doing, I need to pack in my full-time job and increase the number of hours I'm spending on my side venture and make that my main hustle. So that was the mentality in my head, that I wanted to dedicate more time and do what I enjoy doing more, even though it was a financial backwards move for about the first 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, you and I have actually had a really good conversation before where you were quite reassuring to me, where I think this is true for a lot of men. When you're in a relationship, you kind of feel like you should be the provider, don't you? And when business isn't going so well, or when your partner kind of picks up the slack on the finances, it kind of hits you in your confidence. But speaking to you gave me such good reassurance that the difficult patch I was going through, just keep pushing through. And then, really coincidentally, I actually read a book, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but the guy was saying year 3 and 4, you'll start to make some money. Year 5, 6, and 7, you'll start to make really good money. So yeah, it fit along with exactly what you said happened to you.
Yeah, that's exactly. I had that story as well. In my head, I don't know why. It was without research, really. It was just my own opinion of what I thought I would achieve. I thought once I left work, within a year, I'd make, say, 20K. Within 2 years, I'd match whatever salary I was on. I thought it would be quicker than it actually was. And I think, from my personal experience of managing loads of accountancy clients, everyone thinks that way, that they really back themselves and think, yeah, 6 months they'll make this much money. I think Amazon and eBay is a little bit different. I reckon you can make, and TikTok, let's say, you can make profits really quick. But in a general business, historically, what we've always known, your first year, you'll be lucky to break even. And it takes actually 4 years to get any sort of profit. And that's you going at it every day. Like, you're hustling, you're doing everything you're meant to do, you're working really hard, but it's just not working. And the reason for that is if you stick in a business long enough, you're always going to be working on it. You're always going to be improving it. You're always going to find, and if you're really critical of yourself, which I am always critical, I'm always thinking, what can I do better? What process can I fix? Why is this failing? Why did that email get missed? Whatever it may be, what's falling down? And you always try to think, how can I fix that from a process point of view? Every week, every month, every year, you're going to be improving, whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%. If you keep doing that week on week, month on month, year on year, in 4 years, you would have fixed everything that you needed to fix to become an established company. And once you're an established company, that's when you really start to see, okay, now you're making money, and then it will snowball. And you're ready for that snowball because you had fixed everything, all your teams in place, you had all your processes in place in those first 4 years. You're ready for that snowball effect. And that's when year 4 to year 7, you should be doing this. And year 7, life starts to get really great in your example, because by that stage you're still increasing like this, but you're starting to move away from the business because you don't need to be there directly face to face every single day. You should be watching in, your team should be managing anything, you're doing like a weekly check-in or whatever it may be. So that's when year 7 onwards life should be really great. I'm not there yet, but hopefully one day.
Yeah, absolutely. You just got to keep on with that trajectory and you'll get there, no doubt. Um, okay, so talking about established business, tell us a bit about Smartly. So when did you form Smartly?
So we formed in 2018, started with e-commerce clients, funnily enough, and most of our 95% of our client base is e-commerce based. We didn't plan for it to be that way. We're open to everyone. We have restaurant clients, taxis, we have clients in the film industry, but 95% e-commerce. And the reason for that is we don't do too much advertising, actually. We try to do our best on social media here and there. We can't really get a good run at it sometimes. We get busy, we get sidetracked, we get deadlines. So most of our clients just come from referrals, which is great, because if clients are referring you, means you're doing the right things, that people are happy to recommend you to someone else. And because our original base was e-commerce, the referrals were e-commerce business too. And then it snowballs. That it's like a multiplier effect, you know? So it just turns out that we have like 250 plus e-commerce clients, basically, which forms the biggest base of our practice.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a Hormozyism. Hormozy says if people aren't referring your business, then your product isn't good. And I was going to say, because you said you're mostly affiliates, in my experience, we've had really good results with using Smartly. So that's why I told the other guys to get on the team, just because I've tried 3 or 4 different accountants, and communication was terrible with them. My VAT bills were always massive, and yeah, I was very happy with the results working with you guys.
But thank you so much. A lot of people ask me, like, you know, when you first launch the business, you become really analytical, thinking, what's your USP? What's your USP? How would you actually sell your service? Why would someone choose you over someone else? And I did. Like, I used to be there. We were all about systems. We tried to build our own machine learning algorithms to categorize transactions and all this stuff. And I used to go really hard on pitching that side of things when I first started to get on clients. Like, we have the software, we developed it, blah 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 blah. Now I don't really need to say anything. But one, our name means something. But what I realize is, over the years of experience, actually, people don't even care about that. What they want is, they've had a bad experience from another accountant, and the reasons are they sent an email, they haven't had a reply for say 7 days. They can't get a meeting with them, or they arrange a meeting and they got asked to rearrange a few times. They can't get hold of the actual person. The VAT bills, as you say, are like far too high. It's always wrong. The person hasn't really read the invoices properly or got the memo on the emails. So a lot of those are simple things, if you imagine it. It's really, really simple things, like just make sure you respond to your clients, make sure if you have a meeting book, don't rearrange it where possible, and just do your actual job properly, which you're meant to do, right? So you get a VAT return, do that properly, do annual accounts properly, don't miss deadlines. So we actually, I could hands on say, actually, the reason why we just grow now is we do the simple things that we're supposed to do right. And clearly, there's not enough other competitors or accountants who aren't doing the simple things right. So that goes true in all businesses. You don't need to overcomplicate it to say, what's my USP? What makes me special? What's my differentiator effect? Actually, just come into work every day, work really hard, do the things you're supposed to do the things that you're supposed to do those, do it nice and consistent. Consistency is the key, and your business will just grow. It genuinely will just grow.
Yeah, I like speaking from experience, not just with accountants, but I've had prep centers and software companies that we've worked with where the biggest frustration I have is almost always down to communication. If you're offering a service to people and your communication is terrible, I think for most people, they get quite emotionally frustrated by that. So, yeah, that was one of the troubles I had with a different accountancy firm we used. We just couldn't get hold of them. And when we did, you could tell they weren't actually reading the information we were giving.
Yeah, that's a good example as well. Prep centers, because see posts here and there on Facebook, social media. The biggest reason people leave prep centers are the turnaround times are too slow. They sent a parcel today, it takes 3 weeks to get packed, and you're just ruining the total working capital cycle, right? So again, if you're running a prep center, just try to do, 24-hour, 40-hour, 72-hour turnaround, and your clients are happy. Sounds simple enough, right? But that's literally what all your client wants is just that, 72-hour turnaround time, whatever the SLA is. So you don't need to have like a massive USP. It just orders come in, orders go out. That's what they're looking for. They don't need any fancy inventory tracking system. Maybe you do, I don't know. I'm just trying to simplify as much as possible, but that's the biggest reason what makes someone happy with your prep center or not. Just turnaround times. That's your number one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So can you just tell us a bit about what an accountant actually does?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. So usually, let's stick with e-commerce Amazon seller. So let's say you're an Amazon seller. You can't just start selling on Amazon. You can't just say, tomorrow I'm going to create an Amazon account and start selling. You've got to first start with your legal entity setup. So are you going to be a sole trader or a limited company? And from that point onwards, you need to start declaring all your taxes. So all of your sales need to be reported, all of your Amazon fees, your prep center costs, your purchasing, your software, all need to be accounted for to make a proper profit and loss and report it to HMRC. That's where we come in. We help with literally from the start to the finish. So we set up the legal entity structure. We make sure you have a business bank account open. Your transactions are going into the business bank account, not your personal bank account. You're storing all your invoices, keeping them safe. And then what we do is we categorize all of your transactions in your ledger. So we say these are sales, these are marketing expenditure, these are software, stationery, blah, 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 blah. This is your profit or loss by month, and then we submit that to HMRC. These include stuff like VAT returns, annual accounts, corp tax, confirmation statements. So we do all of that. Everything to keep you compliant from a HMRC standpoint point of view. Separately, we look to optimize your taxes to say where can you save money. So are you working another job? If not, everyone has like a 12.5K tax-free allowance they can utilize that they can withdraw money. So we'll say, let's register your company for payroll. You can go on payroll. Is there any other staff members that could go on payroll that could work on your business? Use their tax allowance and try to bring your costs up, profit down, and corp tax down, I guess is the name of the game. All in the legal frameworks, of course.
Yeah, of course. I was chatting to someone the other day about how people who don't study taxes, and I've got to be transparent and say I'm someone who doesn't really like this side of things, but I understand as a business owner I have to know it. But someone who is uninitiated with taxes, when you tell them, oh, yeah, to lower my corporation tax, I might put an electric car on my company to bring that down. That's perfectly legal and it's actually encouraged by the government. But someone external who doesn't understand that, they just see you as like a business owner who's trying to dodge tax.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So we get all kinds of questions, and some of them are really smart business decisions where you think, yep, that's 100% justified. Some of them are like, give you a good example. Someone has a home office and they want a coffee machine. Why do you drink coffee? It is primarily for work, right? To keep you awake in the morning when you're tired. It's to work. You don't drink coffee just to sit there watch EastEnders as an example. So a coffee machine is a justifiable business expense. A car, if it's related to the business, so for example, if it's a commercial van and you're sending boxes to DPD, UPS, or wherever, it's a perfectly justifiable business expense. If I've got a car to go meet clients and I don't know, I take a Tesla, it's a justifiable a business expense. If, however, you work from home, you do online arbitrage, you have a prep center, so you're not even sending any units, it's not justifiable to get an electric Tesla as an example, because there's no business reason for it. It's definitely for personal use. So if you tend to buy that under the business, it brings across a benefit in kind and you end up paying the tax on it anyway. So it's got to be justifiable. If HMRC were to ask you the question, but why you work from home, why do you need the car? If you have no reason to, then it can't be brought. But if there is a reason, such as, I don't know, you travel to do retail arbitrage every week and electric's cheaper than anything else, you want to be environmentally friendly, then yes, but it's got to be a justifiable business case.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't want to get in trouble with HMRC.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey guys, just wanted to quickly let you know that we've actually partnered up with Zmartly. They're giving an exclusive discount to members of our community where you get £50 off your first month. Just join our free Discord community, raise a ticket, and we'll get you sorted. Big thank you to Harvey and the rest of the team at Zmartly. Now back to the podcast. Okay, so this is an expression that you hear a lot in the e-com space, and I'm sure you hear it in other business spaces, but everyone who is successful in business says it's really important to know your numbers. So from an accountancy perspective, why do you think that is?
I think that's a really important point, and I've noticed it myself. So I was selling, I'll give you a personal example. I was selling on eBay for about since 2017, right? And I stopped it in November. And last year, from February onwards, I never made a profit. I always thought I could turn it around, but I couldn't. And too many months had gone by, and I thought enough's enough. But I always knew how much money I was losing, and the point when I thought I can't turn it around anymore, or I've had enough. I could turn it around if I tried, but this was always a very much a passive income side hustle, which virtual assistants would run for me. I never had the energy, never had the desire, never had the fire on my belly to turn it around. But I knew that from my numbers, I thought enough's enough, let's pack it in. Had I not kept an eye on my numbers and my team was just running it, because it didn't bother me on a day to day. Had my team just run it, I just forgot about it. I could have let them run it for 2 years and my losses just would have accumulated until it really did impact me. But because I knew it, I stopped it early enough in its tracks, so my losses were very minimized. So that's when it's important to know your numbers. Separately, I can give you a flip case example where one of our clients were actually making a lot of money. We knew they would have had a big corp tax problem coming up. The annual accounts are due by August, and we said, none of you are on payroll at the moment. They're literally husband, wife, son, all works in the business, but none of them were on payroll. They weren't taking any money because they thought they never had the money to take out. Plus, they want to reinvest it, which is a great idea. Is something I advise, to reinvest profits. But I said, you're going to come into a problem where if you keep reinvesting, you need to think about your tax situation. You're going to end up with a corp tax bill. So why don't you, your wife, your son, who hasn't taken a salary out for, a year or so, go on payroll and use your 12.5K tax allowance at least. And if you want more, take dividends. And if there's anything else that could benefit you, such as, any kind of home office equipment, table, chairs, laptops, start purchasing it now so that we can issue your expenses and bring your corp tax down before your year end finishes. So that's another example where the flip side, where the numbers were too good that we were able to foresee there's going to be a tax bill down the line, that we can actually plan for that event and try to minimize that as much as possible, as long as the client was happy to do those actions.
Yeah, I think it's something that members of the public who aren't entrepreneurial and aren't business owners, yes, you should pay your fair share in tax. Taxation is how countries survive, so we absolutely should. But when you're dedicating all of your existence, you're killing yourself for your business, and just because you haven't played the game that the government have set up to you to play properly, you might lose all of that money just by not paying yourself. Everyone should agree that if you're working 12, 16 hours a day on your business, you should earn money from that. I think a lot of people don't understand that. So I think that's a really good analogy on or a really good example, I should say, on why it's so important to know the game that we're playing when it comes to taxes.
That's it. It's just about paying a fair share, absolutely granted, but you don't want to overpay in the sense that they never took a pay for a whole year. Three people in a family took zero pay. So they paid double the tax for no reason, right? They should at least take their pay and then whatever's left, pay the taxes fair enough. So yeah, it's just about not overpaying, I guess, should be the word. Uh,
Yeah.
right,
And
Jackson.
when you see how many businesses fail, I guarantee a lot of it is because people don't have accountants or good accountants and they overpay on taxes. A lot of businesses work on such tiny margins anyway. So if you get these kinds of decisions wrong, it can really hurt you in the long run.
I agree. I agree. And I don't think it's a big expense. I know a lot of people who never had accountants always think, oh, accountants are super expensive, but prices are like from 100 to £200 a month, which if you look at all your operating expenses, is it's in line with a normal operating expense. It doesn't stand out like, oh, my accountancy fee is really high, So I don't think it's that expensive as people may think as well.
So, one of the questions I had lined up for you was what sets Smartly differently to other accountants? You've kind of addressed that by saying you don't really need a unique USP. You just need to do things well consistently. But I actually really like that Smartly you have a team of VAs, right? Don't you, that do bookkeeping, which is a task I hate doing. So I was really, I was really excited by that.
So we do. I undersold myself in the sense that actually the biggest reason why people come on to us are just we do the simple. The biggest selling point that I think is we just do the stuff that you should be doing right, and we address the issues that they had before. But I undersold in the fact that we embrace technology. So right from the start, when I was in Barclays, investment banking wealth manager, I was a very techie guy. So process driven. So I set up really, really good processes, really good systems to categorize transactions automatically. So if you have like repeating transaction, next time you give it to us, it will automatically know what the transaction is. We just feed your bank statement in. So we've got really good processes, really good systems, and then we got really good teams who would overview all of those transactions. So we don't just say, here's the bot, spat it out, oh, sorry, our bot broke. No, we don't do that. We always make sure a human reviews every single line to make sure it's all good and take it across. So technology, systems, processes, simple things right. We know what we're talking about. I think is a second USP where I've done e-commerce myself. I understand the business model. If you talk about online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, private label, selling in the USA, Europe, prep centers, I understand all that terminology. If I didn't do e-commerce and you mentioned prep centers, I would say, oh, what's that? And you would spend half an hour just explaining to me what a prep center is. And I'll say, oh, so you order stuff from the retail shop and then the prep center packs it, sends it to Amazon. And you'll think, why am I wasting half an hour teaching this guy my business model? When you don't need to know, you don't need to do my journal entries. But I understand it all. So when you speak to me, one, you're not wasting that time teaching your accountant, which again is another feedback that I have had some people have come on to me. They thought they were teaching their accountant how this works because it is so unique, e-commerce. So that's one thing, we understand the business model. Two, because we understand it, we can actually give you advice, right? We can tell you if you're too small for a prep center in a way where you're not making enough money, maybe you might want to start prepping at home, or you're getting too big that you need to outsource to a prep center if you want to scale. It depends on different issues, right? If someone says they're not making any money, they're working all hours in the day, we might say maybe try prep at home. If somebody says, look, I work a full-time job, I want this to be off my hands, we may say go to a prep center. We can give this business, not even tax advice, we can actually give business advice because we understand the business model. And I think that's actually what a lot of people like. I think that another point is me inherently to build Zmartly up. An accountant normally, I don't speak for all accountants, but a lot of accountants, there's no shortage of accountants, by the way. Like if I type in my postcode at home, type in accountant near me, there are probably about 90 accountants. But a lot of accountants are accountants from home that just work there with an assistant. And that's how accountants normally do. They have one senior accountant, one junior accountant, and they're both accountants. That's it. The way I set up the organization, I set up an operation department, marketing department, sales department, accountant department, senior accountant, bookkeepers. I set up a whole infrastructure But I thought of it from a business point of view, not an accountant practice point of view. So inherently, I don't want to be a self-claimed entrepreneur, but that's effectively how I would consider myself. So when it comes to advice, I'm giving it to you from an entrepreneur standpoint, not always an accountant standpoint as well. So I can do both, which I think is a big plus, and that's actually why I have such a good relationship with a lot of my clients. I resonate with them. They feel like they resonate with me as well, and I think that really helps the practice.
Again, speaking from experience, I've had a couple of accountants who very clearly have no entrepreneurial bone in their body. So it does make a difference to talk to an accountant who does understand, does get it. So part of what you just said is that you can offer advice. What would you say is something a lot of business owners slash sellers get wrong?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. E-commerce is very fast paced, and a lot of sellers go into it not knowing they're setting up a business. So, if you were to buy, like, I don't know, a cafe or whatever, a pub or something, you go into it with the mindset, I'm setting up a business, I'm buying a business, I'm going to have staff. With e-commerce, TikTok, Amazon, whatever it may be, you just go into it as a little side hustle. Like, you're working, let me set up an Amazon account, let's sell a few things. Oh, it's sold. Let me start to buy a few more things. It's sold. Before you know it, you're doing like 10K a month turnover, but you didn't have the plan of setting up a business. You just did it, right? So that's the mistake I see a lot of people making, where they don't actually treat it like a business. They treat it like this, so try to do a side hustle, and it blew up. And before they know it, about 12 months in, oh crap, I need an accountant. I never filed anything before. I didn't even realize I had to pay tax. Other kind of queries that I do get. I do get this query. I didn't realize I had tax to do. So I think it's the education from the starting point that Amazon is a business. It's actually a big business. I see a lot of sellers, even with small turnover, have 3, 4 virtual assistants. That's 3, 4 staff members working full time on your business. That's a lot. It's a lot more than a lot of small businesses in the UK running, like physical shops. So I think you have to treat it like a business, and that's the mindset that you should go on from the start. What that means is, if you have staff members running, you should have standard operating procedures. What do they do on a day-to-day basis? Do you have process notes for that? What if one staff member gets ill? What if you don't like a staff member, you want to get rid of them? Can you easily bring in a new staff member? There's a lot of stuff that's actually involved in Amazon, and I think people don't realize how big it is when they're doing it. They just think, I run an Amazon account. You actually run a business. And I think that's the mindset that people need to take with it from the start. And I think that would also make them a lot more successful when you start thinking of it as that way. If you treat it like a big deal, you start to work on it better, and I think it will become a big deal.
Yeah, we actually just did a live call with the community recently where the topic was how to treat it like a business, not a side hustle, because of exactly what you just said. The amount of people we speak to who, Amazon is pretty fast with sales, so it rapidly turns into something bigger than you were expecting. And loads of people aren't prepared for that. And I'm sure loads of people never saw themselves as business owners. They just thought, I'll just sell some stuff on the side. But as you say, it is a very big business.
Business snowballs fast is a double effect, because you get to a point where you think, oh, it's bigger than I thought, and I need to do all these things. But because this is growing so quick, you don't actually get the time for it anymore. And this is one thing that I was lucky in a way. I did this. So there's 2 ways to set up businesses. I'll give you my particular example. I've got a good friend of mine. We came from the same kind of background, same education, same setup, everything. He ran an accounting practice. He ran it by himself. No help, nothing. So he had no cost from day one. Any money coming in was profit. He's growing to a really good stage now. He's doing really well, but he can't scale because he doesn't have the time to get a staff member. He doesn't know where to hire, who to hire, to train him up. He says, I have no time. So I've just got, so he's capped out. So he did really well. He did a lot better than me in my initial years, but he's got his cap now. So basically, you could say it's almost just like working a normal 9 to 5 job, really, because he physically has to do everything himself. Is no difference to what I had in Barclays, as an example. I did the opposite approach, which I thought may have been the wrong approach if I reflect back, but I'm not sure if it was. Once I give you this example, I set up all my departments first, even before I had a single penny going through the door. So I was already doing marketing on social media, already had someone working in operation, blah, blah, blah. I was paying that money out of my own pocket. Initially, I thought I'd have to pay for 6 months, 9 months. Yeah, I had the money. I was paying from my own pocket for 4 years, which is why I thought I made a mistake. I should have just started. And there was a critical moment, which I shared with you once, but I haven't shared with many people. There's a critical moment where I had 5 grand turnover coming into Zmartly and I had my cost at 6K. So I was losing £1 a month. And it's already 4 years into the journey. And I thought, I don't know how much longer I can keep this going. I need to make a choice. And the choice I had to make was I got 5 grand coming in. Do I get rid of all my staff and do it myself? And now I'm happy, making 60K a year salary. Or do I go back to work for 6 months on a short-term cash flow needed injection and let everyone else work? I chose the second option. I went to work for 5.5 months. It was 5.5 month contract. I literally almost killed myself. I was working is a job in London. It's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. by the time you include the travel time. From 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. I was working on Zmartly every day. From 3 a.m. till 6:20, you wake up basically ready for work again. I was sleeping. That was the only sleep I had, and did it for 5.5 months. It was a 6 month contract. I couldn't last the last 2 weeks. I had to just take annual leave and just finish it there and then. That's how bad it was. But in that time, I learned one thing. One, my team was already ready. They were like appreciative that I kept them in the job, and we snowballed like crazy. Because the one thing I learned from going back to work was, initially it felt great, to be honest with you. I had a regular income every month, paid on like the 25th of every month. It was brilliant. I thought, why did I ever leave? Why did I bother setting up a loss make? At this point, my mindset was I made losses for 4 years. Here I'm making money from day one. Why did I even bother doing my own business, take all that stress? But in about month 2, month 3, I realized work gives you no freedom. You're on a lunch break, you see your email, oh crap, I've got to reply to the email, and you have to run to the office. Or I had an agreement where it'd be like, I think it was like 2 days in the office, 3 days from home. All of a sudden, they wanted you in on this day, they wanted you in on that day. American investors were coming over, we want you in the office 5 days a week. And it was really frustrating because you never knew what you were doing, right? You had no meetings planned out, and then you thought you had a nice morning. All of a sudden, you get these invites, you get these calls. You have no freedom in actual work. And I just couldn't wait to hustle really hard on my accountancy business, which I was doing in the evenings, to never be in that situation again. That was my push, my drive, that this is the last time I'm ever going. And before that point, I always had a doubt, in all honesty. I was never sure in those first 4 years, will I ever need to go back to work or not? Because I never made a profit. My LinkedIn still didn't show Zmartly in it until that point, because I didn't want to rule myself out from a corporate job. Because I think once you start saying you started your own business, you're an entrepreneur, it is a career killer, to be honest with you, because they would never see you as a corporate guy. They would think you're trying to leave the chain. How do we know you won't raise the money and leave again? So until that point, I didn't even update my LinkedIn on Zmartly. I kept it all my own employment history. But once I'd finished that job, I thought, that's it. I'm done. I'm never going back to the corporate world again. Put all LinkedIn posts on Zmartly, etc., and now go crazy on it. Probably would never get another job in the corporate world. But that was a deciding factor. Once I knew in my mind I never want to go down that route, I went all in on Zmartly, and that's when we started to really grow. And then it snowballed from there on in.
That is an incredible story. Honestly, like I work hard and I'm pretty proud of how hard I work, but that is crazy.
Honestly, like I work crazy. That's another thing as well. So I work really hard. Like for the last 7, 8 years, I work really, really hard. I see some people go on podcasts. I see some people go on stage, present at events, and they all talk about the freedom of work. And I get it. That is the motivation. That's what everyone wants to get to. I'm of the opposite view, to be honest with you. Me having worked on and I see other quotes though, I left my 9 to 5 to work on a 24/7 business. I'm in that camp because my job in my own business is 10 times harder than what I used to do at work. Actually, the reason why I first enjoyed those first 2 to 3 months when I was at work, it was so easy. It was honestly like when I work on Zmartly, I'm really like I'm straight to the point. I'm like my phone doesn't stop ringing. I'm doing my team meetings. I'm setting up like I feel like if I do it more, my morning calls is like I'm setting up my team to go to war. It's like this is the plan of action. You're gonna do this. You're gonna get back to this, and it's amazing. It's incredible. When I went to the corporate world, they're just laid back, they're sipping their coffee. So how was your weekend, Harvey? You have a good weekend? Yeah, okay, yeah, you got up to anything? It's so slow. And it used to frustrate me. I thought, there's meetings going on for an hour and a half and you haven't even got to the point, right? Like, what is the actual one takeaway that I'm going to take from this? Whereas I will give my team 7 takeaways in a 10-15 minute daily stand-up. So the pace of work was so slow, but it was so easy, honestly. I would do that if I was happy at work. I didn't have a side income. I didn't have a plan of a side income. I could do that work job in its sleep without any tension or stress. But in my own business, I'm working all the time. I'm thinking about it all the time. Even when you're sleeping or when you're going for a walk, you're not reflecting of life. You're just thinking, what can I do better in my own business? Like I live, breathe, eat the business. So I think it's a lot more stressful doing your own business. I think it's a lot more harder work doing your own business. But hands down, I can say if you can last that first 4 year period just like I did, the reward is so much better. And that's what I can kind of sell to anyone watching this podcast today is not for me. I'm not convinced by the freedom side of things. That's the school of thought. It's just my own opinion. Maybe I'm doing it wrong and loads of people are having loads of freedom and they work for 1 hour in the day. I don't. I work my ass off, but the reward for what I put in is so much better. And I wouldn't have had that reward in the day job. You know, what do you get at work? You're lucky if you get a 2-3% increase in a year. In a business, we grew, I personally say these numbers now, we've grown 100% for 5 years on the trot in Zmartly. So 100% growth. So if you imagine turnover, profit after a certain point is growing 100% a year, I'll be lucky to grow 5% at work in a year, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, that's with inflation the way it is right now. Before it used to be like 1-2%. So that's what I take out of business. That's what I can kind of tell anyone watching this podcast actually. It's hard work. I don't think of it as freedom, but I think the reward is there. And that's what I'm going for anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the counter perspective that I have is when people pursue business ownership and then they say it's because I want free time, I don't want to work all the time. The reality is most people who own their own business are working way more than they would in a 9 till 5. But if you love what you're doing, I never perceive what I'm doing as work. I love what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, I'm sad that I have to stop. So in a sense, I'm working way harder and longer than I used to, but I am free from work.
I think you nailed it on the head. I think that's exactly it. I 100% agree with exactly what you just said there. Every word.
Congratulations on the results with Smartly. That is incredible. I think every business owner listening would be frothing at the mouth for 100% growth year on year.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you had to give advice to any Amazon seller out there around accountancy or around running their business, what would that be?
Get started early as possible. Number one. The reason why I say that, the price doesn't change if you get an accountant later or earlier. People think, oh, I can't afford an accountant right now, I'll get one later on. When you get an accountant later on, they're going to backdate the work from day one. The difference is, though, if you had an accountant from day one, so you're paying for it anyway, but now you're not getting the device that you would have got for 12 months. You're missing out, if anything, but paying the same price. The difference is, if you don't get an account from day one, you would do the things wrong. So I see so many people come on to me late. They use their personal bank account for everything. It's really messy. You don't know what's a personal transaction, what's business. Even they would have forgotten. And then you have to then get the client to tell you, take out your personal transaction, and they end up double working for no reason. Whereas if they were set up right in the first place, you wouldn't have the double work. Or if they pay the accountant, they pay double fees, let's say. But you avoid all those basic, I don't want to say basic errors, but you just get set up the right way from day one if you get an accountant early. because you know you're going to need one in the end anyway. It's going to cost you the same fee. You're not going to save a penny by doing it later. So that's a day one expense. Number two is just treat it as overhead. You know, if you start, I hear people say, but I have no money. But you brought the software you needed to be, brought the software, you brought the laptop, you buy, whatever monthly expenditures you need. You got to just treat it as overhead. It's a cost. Getting an there's two schools of thoughts here, and I've heard both. Some people say get a local accountant, someone you can go into the office, speak to them, explain to them. I think you need an e-commerce specialist accountant. That's my personal view. I see so many, and I know this because I can measure why do people. This is another good business advice as well. When people come on to me, I always ask, so why did you leave your last accountant? And I listen. The reason why I ask that is not because I want to see what did the accountant, what's wrong with other accountant. I just want to know what is making people leave other people to come onto us, so I can avoid those issues and no one leaves us. So I'm always learning from other people's mistake to make us better. So that's a good always check for feedback basically in whatever way it comes around. So one of the feedbacks we always get are, we were with a local accountant. It was like slamming your head against the wall because you just never understood the business model. Second thing is, as soon as our turnover grew, he kept charging us double the fees, but we weren't making double the profit. An e-commerce accountant understands the business model. He understands there's a high turnover business, it's a high transactional business, and the price plan should affect that. So our pricing is simple. We have one price for non-VAT registered clients and one price for VAT registered clients. It doesn't matter if you go from 200 transactions to 600. We know that's the nature of the game. You're working in a high volume business. So we understand that. So an e-commerce accountant is very, very important for those reasons. Third one, just go with someone you feel comfortable with, that you get on with, that you feel you'd have a good relationship with it. I've seen people fall out with their accountants and they don't enjoy the emails that come through from them. People get arsy with each other, and that's not a healthy relationship. You shouldn't be working with anyone you don't like in a way. You don't want to be working with a staff member you don't like. You don't want to be working with an accountant you don't like, a marketing team you don't like. So just go with someone you actually feel like you can resonate with, get on with on a personal level as well. And that always helps. Makes the chats a bit more enjoyable when you want to catch up about what can be a boring topic of accounting. It's quite nice if you actually enjoy your accountant and you can get on about other stuff as well.
Yeah, I'd say I completely agree with you. I took on an accountant earlier than most Amazon sellers would, but that's because I knew that you have to backdate the pay anyway, and I wanted someone to guide our mistakes because we were so new to business. So I'd say that's very good advice. You're happy to join our server and give advice if people have accountancy questions, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking really forward to being part of the SellerSmart community as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you ever so much for your time today. That was honestly a really enjoyable conversation. I've heard people working hard, but people were sleeping 3.5 hours for fire spat hunt. That is a good grind. So congratulations that it paid off.
Thank you. So one of the things, so I haven't had a break in a long time, and I have felt myself. I don't know if you know. So last year, one of our there's another accounting company, Passive Tax, that went down. I don't know if you heard of that. A lot of their clients came over to us, and we lost no one, which was one of the biggest achievements we had in 2024, was not losing a single client of everyone that came across. A lot of people thought at the time, Jesus, Zmartly are taking on all these clients. Will they fall? Can they cope? We never lost a single client, which is an amazing achievement. But that year was very, very draining. So this Sunday, I'm going to Kerala for a health retreat to recover from all the toll that I put my body in the last few years, and particularly last year as well. So looking forward to that 10-day detox break, going to lots of yoga and just recover.
When you said to me before we started the call that you're going to go to a health retreat, I was like, oh, I hope you're okay. You've been going so much harder for so much longer. So
That's it. And I think this is another important thing as well as part of business. So I've been so tunnel vision. The only thing that mattered was business, 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 grow it, grow it, grow it, work hard, put the hours in. And I worked crazy hard, taken to toll my body. I used to be in good physique in my 20s. Now I'm not so much. I hardly go to the gym, but that's me taking it too far. I need to find, I'm a guy of extremes, which you can kind of tell with the work ethic. Finding that balance is one of the hardest things you can do in life, because it's a lot easier to be at one extreme where you're working too hard or not hard at all. Finding the balance is the art. I still haven't nailed it, but that's one of my things for this year, to get better at it, starting with this trip as well. But that's another thing that I encourage everyone to do. Like, you don't want to go to, you need the balance.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in a similar position where I was really into natural bodybuilding, and I did a show and I got in the best shape of my life. And I thought, man, once you've achieved these maintenance, you only need like 3 days a week. Is I can keep this amazing physique forever. And then I got into business and I spent 16 to 18 hours a day sat at my desk not exercising, eating like crap because I didn't have time to cook food, and I lost all of my progress. But we got to the end of the first year where the results were okay, but I gave up my physique for it. So I was like, oh, was it worth it?
And this is a thing, right? So people say to me, "Oh, look after your health, go gym." I think, where do you find the time? Like, I don't know where you'd fit it in. I genuinely don't know. And this is where I'm glad you have the same views as me, because I see these posts like, "Oh, I'm going to get so much freedom, so much time." Actually, it's hard work. And that's another thing. When you ask me, what advice do you have for new business owners? The first thing to realize is it's going to be hard work. You're leaving your day job to do this, but realize the journey is going to be tough and you got to go all in on it. But the reward is there at the end of the tunnel. That's the great thing. And maybe if you speak to me in another year's time, I might be in year 7 of that journey that we mentioned, where actually my team are starting to do a lot more. I'm more hands off. And I would say, actually, it's not hard work anymore. I'll come out the other side. But let's see next year.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. That sounds like the dream, doesn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
All
Perfect.
right. Well, Harvey, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you.